Hello, welcome to Plutus Experience number 7. If it's your first time here, the link for the first video in this series is in the description. Please subscribe and tick the bell to receive notifications on new release. If you're following us so far, please leave a comment below. So I'll leave for a while this function here, this placeholder here, and we need to import that lib to use that, the Cardano serialization lib. So let's do that first. Then after that, we can return to this get UtxOs, right? So I'm gonna open here my Nix Flake. We're gonna import that Cardano serialization lib. We have this frame function dependence field here that we can fulfill with a node dependence or even Nix dependence. We can use that, and let's do the using only Nix because it's pretty straightforward to do that. The only thing we're gonna need to do here is to create a new input here for CSL, having the address a module here. If you take a look at this URL here, you're gonna see that this is actually a module, a JavaScript module, a ECMAScript module. If you just put this on the browser, this is the module name. If you take a look here in the Cardano serialization lib, if you look at the npm module, browser pure, I'm using that one, right? So if you click here, it's gonna send you to a node package called Emurger Cardano serialization lib. So I just copied this name here of the module and added this on this URL here, which just transform any node module into a module, an ASM compatible module, so you can just use that in the browser without npm. So you just need to append here the esm.sh and the module name, and this gonna give us this JavaScript file that export everything inside of this module to this file here. So if we add this and we say this is not a flake here, we can this gonna fetch this file here. Nick's gonna fetch this file here and create a derivation that just represents this file here. So given this is a file, I can just append this input in the foreign setting here. The only thing that I need to change here, because we are not using npm, is not a node module, this is just a file. So I need to replace this for source, and it's a single source, so we just need to pass that to our input. And here we need to change this value here for the module. So in our case, it's going to be wallet.api, right? Is the place that we're going to use this as a library. And the way it works with Persnix is that we're gonna, with that in place, we're gonna have a foreign folder in the output having the corresponding input there to be used. I'm gonna show you how this works. Here I just need to add the missing semicolon here. And I'm adding this source map in line to have source maps if you need to debug anything. You can discard that if you're not if you don't need that. It's gonna save space for you. And you can be wondering, hey, but this is unsafe, right? You're like using a provider for your file, and why you're not relying on npm registry. Well, it happens that ESM is actually a platform that is being used by other runtimes like Denon and Bun to import node modules, so it's pretty safe and it's pretty well known by the community. You don't need to be worried about this platform being safe, but in anyway, Nick's gonna compute the hash of the file. So if if you look here, you're gonna see, oh, this is the file I'm using. This is gonna be hashed by Nix. And when you do that Nix lock command, and this is gonna create in the Nix lock file corresponding hash, computed hash, so you can be sure that the file is the same as the one we're looking here because of this hash. It's unique, you know, you cannot have a fake file here with something different. It's gonna compute a different hash, so it's safe because of that. So don't need to worry about that. So let's try that. I'm gonna close here our dev environment and just run Nix develop again. You can see it's downloading now the Cardano serialization lib from ESM. It has added the input here, as you can see, with computed hash. And whenever we run the dev command or just Nix compile, which is just the same thing, you're gonna see that in the output folder, you need to add this UtxO type here. I'm gonna use that get UtxOs function. Let's see if you can compile that now. Let me remove this get UtxO for a while, just to see if you can compile here using Nix. Now we're gonna see if in the wallet folder, yeah, we have a foreign folder here, and you can see its content. If you take a look here, what is that? You're gonna see it's a link pointing to another star path. And if you take a look at this path, you're gonna see this guy here is actually the input we have added. If you just show the input of that, you're gonna see, oh, okay, this is a JavaScript file. So that's how we have in the Flake Nix, we have the foreign function import pointing to this Cardano serialization lib. And with that, we can, for example, import from here using the same namespace. So we could have like import here of transaction unspent output, just following the name here from CIP. But if you're like wondering, okay, but I want to see where is this come from, you can just see the source code. Unfortunately, that is not public doc on the APIs. You need to use you need to see the source code to be able to see what's being imported here there. But you can see that, okay, this is not a readable thing. So what you can do, and what I did, is you can always inspect in the browser when running the application here. But you can also get the source code of this module in GitHub. You can read the spec, the specification, but I don't really recommend this hard stuff. But you can also use the source code here. There's a place where you can check the types and the functions available, and the place is that one right here. In this folder, in this file, you have function documentation. I know there's a lot of things and it's not well structured, but at least it's something that it can be that you can use to learn how to use those functions and those types. For example, if I look here from transaction unspent output, you can see this is actually an export here. Here's the one. So you can see it's a class and has methods, and I know this is not something that we are used to in PureScript dealing with class, but this is pretty the same as a type class in PureScript. In JavaScript, you can also have the full instance for class, so in the end, it's going to be pretty similar. Yeah, here you can have a clue on what is this doing and what are the methods available to be used and so on. So what I'm gonna do here is import this transaction span output from our foreign folder, right? And with that, I'm planning to have that function, the get UtxOs function we're looking for. And the function is exactly, let me export that, get UtxOs. Remember that we need to have APIs, right? So for example, here this enable function returns an API in the main file here, right? So we need to pass this API to that get UtxOs function. So that UtxOs function receive that API and produce a side effect returning the UtxOs. So API get UtxOs. That's it. And we are not passing that amount. Parameter, we are not passing that because, like I said before, we are not looking for specific UtxO, but we're looking for all UtxO. If we're looking for all UtxO, we also don't need to pass paginate. You could improve that, but in our case, without paginate is okay. So we export that. I will also export here another function called from hex. Remember, because this get UtxOs returns that cbor we saw before, you know, this cbor thing, which is an encoded binary. It's a string on the JavaScript side, so we need to convert that to our type, to our transaction span output. Right, so I'm creating this function to do that. In this case, we're gonna take a cbor and we're gonna return. I'm using a side effect function, so I'm using that inside of an effect function. I'm not sure if it's strictly required, but you could simplify that if you're not required to use that. But anyway, we can just skip that. So transaction, we're gonna use this transaction unspent output from hex. If you take a look here, you're gonna see there's this function right here in this Cardano serialization lib. If you take a look here in this transaction spent output, you're gonna see that to hex, you can see here that transform an object to hex, an instance of this class to hex, and also the other way around, which is transform the object to the own object. So that's the one we are looking for. It receives a string, as you can see here, and returns this transaction span output, which is gonna be an instance of this class. So it's an object, a JavaScript object. So that's the guy we're looking for, because inside of this guy, we're gonna have access to the input and the output, and with that data we can get the current amount in each UtxO input and output. So that's the guy we're looking for. So I'm gonna call this from hex and pass that cbor right here. Okay, this create this both functions here, the function to get UtxOs and the function to transform each UtxO here, each cbor being written here to a transaction span output value type. Okay, so back to our API, we're gonna also here, I have created this UtxO type before, which is here. We're gonna use that to represent this transaction span output, right? And I'm gonna import the get UtxOs function, which receives an API and returns an effect having a promise. I guess it's a promise. Let me see again on the CIP. You can see get UtxOs is a promise having the transaction. So yeah, it's the same thing as we did in the enable wallet function. So promising with the UTX, actually with the cbor, right? If I leave the UTXO here, I'm gonna have an issue on compilation because it's gonna say, hey, this is a string, it's not a UTXO, so you cannot really do that. But that's not the case for the cbor, so the cbor should be okay. I guess we need to create this cbor type, which is not here. So let me create that. Is going to be a string. Okay, so far so good. Now we're gonna also create that on another function for import to transform each CBOR here inside of this get UtxOs to our UtxO data type. It's gonna be from hex to UtxO, and this function is gonna receive a CBOR, and it's gonna return an effect. It's an effect having the UtxO. With that, we import both functions, get UtxOs and from hex to UtxO, and this is gonna return our UtxO now is just an instance. In the JavaScript side, it's gonna be an instance of this type class. Sorry, of that class transaction span output, right? But we still have a problem because actually get UtxO returns an array and not a promise. So this is an error. Actually, it returns a promise having the array, a promise with the array of transaction and span outputs. So we need to fix that array with the CBOR, and each CBOR here is gonna be a new text O as soon as we convert that using the proper function. So we need a way to connect this function to this function now, right? And we're gonna do that in the AF module. Let me just export this function here, get UtxOs, and also from hex to UtxO, so we can use that. Requires CBOR export, no problem, CBOR, that's it. Now in the F module again, we have this get UtxOs here, right? And now we need to implement this. And the function here is pretty the same as get UtxOs from the API. But again, in this, we're gonna return a NAF having the array and not the effect having promise that have the array. So we eliminate the promise thing and just use the AF, which we are familiar with. And we're doing that the same way we did with in Enable Wallet, but we need to also convert the CBOR thing to UtxO. That's another thing we need to do, right? So how we could do that? Let's do this thing here. We're gonna need to lift, right, from that proms to the AF module, right? And the way we're gonna do that, so we're gonna need to call this wallet API from hex to UtxO, passing each CBOR, right? So I don't know who is CBORs yet. We need to define that. Actually, a CBOR, right? And this is gonna return an effect, and we cannot pass an effect to an AF. So for that reason, we're gonna use the lift effect function, right? So we can convert from this effect to this AF. That's the first thing. But we still need to have a way, a function here, to map, kind of a map that allow us to get each CBOR from the get UtxOs function we have created before, right? So we have that already. We have the CBORs from get UtxOs from that module, right? That we get UtxOs, and we need to pass the API. This function is going to return actually the prom CBORs in a proms, right? So we need to convert that to using this to AF function to get its AF, right? So to keep things isolated, I'm gonna create a new function called get UtxOs underline. I'm gonna create this function right here, and this function should return this cbars, and we're gonna use like something with this cbars here to pass that from hex to UtxO and lift that to finally have the UtxOs. So in this get UtxOs functions underline, we should have the same API, but we need to return enough having the array, and in this case the cbar, right? So array of the cbars, because we are getting the cbars here. So in this function we receive this API, and we're gonna call somewhere here we get UtxO, which returns an effect, so we need to lift that, right? So lifting from effect, we're gonna call get UtxOs passing API. So we pass this API here, and this function should return the proms with our arrays, with actually one array, with our cbars. So we're gonna do the same thing we did here, which is using to auth. So we get with this function, we can pass this auth now. So this is gonna be an auth having the array of proms of cbars, and we transform that to auth. So we take the proms have that thing, and we return the auth with that thing. So the proms with that thing should be the proms with that array cbar. So now we have the auth with that array cbar. So we have the cbars here. So it's working here. Let me fix the imports parts here. The bind function is operator. So we need to fulfill those holes here. I'm looking for a map function right here, a function that receives these cbars, pass that to front hex UtxO each cbar, and returns the effect, and we can lift that effect to get this auth with the UtxO, right? So we have this from hex to UtxO, and we need to apply that to each value here in cbars. And the function we could use for that is right here. As you can see, we have data traversable which takes a function that takes each element of TE